I remember this show from way back in the early 2000s called Coradeens Candelabra. It was supposed to be a children's show, but even with my far advice vocabulary at 6, I could still barely pronounce the title, let alone grasp the show's material. Being without cable, we used rabbit ears to get TV. By rabbit ears, I mean an antenna, not actual rabbit ears, though they would be probably get better receptions. One of the few channels we got was a network called Spriggan TV, which showed many sitcoms and cartoons all during all hours of the day. Didn't have commercials except at the end of each show, with the credits sped up alongside the first commercial to be shown. Some of the sitcoms featured were Friends, Seinfeld, and Hogan's Heroes. Actually, until quite recently, it didn't strike me as odd as that this station had the license and permission to use these shows and more, since it had some original stuff to show as well. One of these original shows being a cartoon called Coradeens Candelabra. Labra. I really don't know why I didn't think about the show's oddness before now. This show was seriously messed up. I went online to search for it after a recent conversation which left me wondering about this show and the taste of head cheese, if it was any precursor results for any, but there was literally nothing related to it. I then looked up Spriggan TV, but could only find things in German, and upon trying to look over them, I saw that these sites had nothing to do with the network but a common name. Frustrated, I went to YouTube to waste some time watching the Yogscast and other stuff. Curious, I typed Coradeens Candelabra in the search bar, and I got nothing. No hints, no episodes, no clips, nothing. Not even YouTube had anything. I was at a standstill in my search until my mother brought me certain VHS tapes about a week later. I asked what they were, and she answered, "It's that show you keep looking for. I never saw you get to see it, so I asked around work, and my friend David said he recorded the episodes a long time ago. Apparently, it's pretty hard to find a show, so you should thank him later." I was astonished, took the tapes, and went into my room to watch them, eager to easily sat my curiosity. There are 14 episodes to the show, each 20 to 25 minutes long. I'm only going to go over the three that were made the most uncomfortable. The introduction to the show, accompanied by the rich, somber piano music, is a rich couple leaving their estate with a huge mansion with many expensive things on display as their daughter, Cora Dean, a red-haired, pale-faced child almost like a ginger. She looked like a younger version of her mother, looked sad and at their departure. Departure. When they've gone, she'd gone to Candelabra near the entrance and said, "Ami Sita," which I'm assuming is the thing's name, which I never explicitly has any other title. Thing shudders and come to life, along with many of the other things in the house. The rest of the intro is her dashing through the house, doing the various things with the animated objects before her parents come in. When they enter, all is back to normal. The parents' faces are grim and menacing, looking down at her as she is scum. While she looks over to the candelabra, now sits in its proper place. As the view switches to the candelabra, as the title appears to cross the bottom of the screen. A flowing cursive script, going only off the intro. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the show. Sure, the glaring parents and the sad title music is pretty weird, but nothing hasn't been done before in television. As a kid, those whimsy, she played was interesting. Was watching it now, it bothers the hell out of me. Episode 1. The Growing Pains. This episode begins with Coradeens playing hide and seek with Setia, an unnamed red curtain. Nothing but the Candelabra seems to have a name in the show. She finds Sita behind a stone of her father, who was tall, dark-haired man with a widow's peak and a business suit, but can't find her other friend. Her ma passes by and asks her to help remove some of the curtains around the house. While carrying the red one away, sadly, Coradeens goes into a couple of rooms to remove the curtains, each a different color from the last. How this works athletically, I don't know, but moving on. Once she finishes, Amasita asks why their friends are gone. Coradeens answers with, they're going to a different home where they can be used better, in a way that she says she's heard the same thing before about other things. Amasita starts to cook up a plan to get the curtains back and has Coradeens precipitate. The plan is to go to the room they're being brought to and steal them back to hang in Coradeens' room. Well, and to enacting this. However, they are caught by her father. Rather, she is, because Amasita is in her room preparing the walls. She takes the curtains from her and shouts, "Why do you keep doing this? They're not real. They are not your friends." She proceeds to rip them apart, each punctuated by a yelled word. You are too old to play. Make believe." She tosses the shreds to her feet, and an audible whimper is heard in the curtain's voice, followed by a fading breath. Coradeens begins crying, yells, "You killed them! Why didn't you do that?" Her father screams, "You are too old to play make-believe," again, grabbing her viciously by the arm and taking her away. Cuts from her in the curtain room to her entering her room. A red welt is now visible on her face. Amasita is now nowhere to be seen at first, but comes out of the closet as Coradeens softly cries. The Candelabra sits next to her in her bed as the camera pans out. The episode ends with her sitting near new, more lavish curtains, saying Amasita over and over. The Candelabra is nowhere to be found, however. Her father enters, saying in a monotone, "It's time for your medication, Coradeens." Episode 7, Maddie's Garden. This episode begins with Coradeens' mother showing a group of important-looking people around the house. She converses about her family with these people, stopping by the stairs to shout, "Corey!" The only time a nickname is ever used for her. Coradeens walks calmly down the stairs, doing a small curtsy while wearing a light blue blouse and blue dress. Her mom tells the people this is Coradeens. She's 7 years old. She's very smart as well. She then says something to her daughter in a very different language, and Coradeens responds in apparently the same language. The group claps at the advanced use of Latin as stated by one of the men in the group. The same man asks about the garden, as the group is comprised of judges for a contest. They go back to the house, leaving Coradeens in the main landing. She walks over Amasita, but the scene goes back to her mother and judges. They're all oohing and eyeing over the plants and flowers in the garden, while her mother walks around and talks about the various plants. This scene goes on for 10 whole minutes, way longer than it had to be. The judges deliberate, but finally reveal that she wins second place. She looks angry for a split second, but calmly takes the silver ribbon from the judges. The show cuts to a different house. At a later point in the day, a blonde woman is tending to her garden when a silhouette appears behind her. The scene lasted for 30 seconds, but the silhouette slowly getting closer before cutting to Coradeens watching TV. On a newscast about the missing first-place garden owner Maddie Pendleton, saying she'd gone missing the same day she'd won the ribbon. The committee that judged the contest appeared on the coverage, saying that the contest would be held in her memory in the future. This episode ends with Coradeens' mother tending to a freshly dogged garden. Each section marked off with a stake of wood decorated with the pieces of the curtains from episode 1. She fertilizes the garden with the pinkish red pellets from the bag, which I guess implies that Maddie is growing one last garden. This episode seems to be the last prepared, with a few lines of dialogue cut off at the end. It also is one of the two that doesn't involve Coradeens in the plot. Episode 12. We all scream for ice cream. I hated this episode. I hated this episode so much. Coradeens and Amacita are playing with the cooking set, making macaroni and cheese, which resembles barf. But she's given 7. Giving her a break. Give her a break. Amacita tastes it and tells that it's the best thing since ice cream. Coradeens doesn't know what ice cream is, being homeschooled, limited on TV time, seen in episode 5. Amacita tells her to go get some from the kitchen where it's kept in the freezer. She goes out to get it, but is stopped when her parents walk in, asking her to go away for a bit. She lives as her parents argue about their marriage. Her father wants to have sex, which is startling enough in a children's show. But her mother doesn't want to. Frustrated, he exits the kitchen, slamming the door and going outside. The next 8 minutes are comprised with both Coradeens trying to make new foods to emulate ice cream and her trying to sneak into the kitchen to get some. Near the end of the episode, she tries to again in the dead of the night, finally getting the carton of vanilla from the freezer. As she opens it, her father walks in and sees her with the ice cream. She looks extremely angry for a moment before his face switches to a calmer expression. He says, "Maybe you can help me with my problem. Your mother doesn't seem to want to help." He motions for her to follow and they exit the room. Coradeens still carrying the ice cream. "If you want to help me, I'll let you in on a little secret." The camera stays in the kitchen, but you can hear Coradeens screaming in pain in front of the other room. She doesn't even sound like a voice actor at this point. Sounding like a real person in agony. After 2 minutes of her screaming, they come back. Coradeens with tears streaming down her face and her father with a satisfied look on his face. He sits down on the table with her ice cream, now covered in red liquid, and tells her ice cream's always better with a cherry on top. The rest of the episode is her eating the barbaric dessert. I vomited after this episode. I almost didn't watch the last 2, but I made myself. Coradeens dies in the last 2 episodes, so I don't understand why they'd allow this on a children's show. This show is nothing but a portrayal of an abused daughter, bringing the new meaning to the term beaten like a redhead stepchild. I'm glad this show's as secure as it is, so no one can accidentally stumble upon it. The tapes are currently under investigation by the police, which the explicit material was portrayed, as well as my mother's friend David. Since they can find no evidence of Spring on TV ever existed, and they're assuming that he made the show until further notice. None of the people featured in the show's credits are real people, and there isn't a known animator who does animations similar to the show. David had a daughter who died in 2003 at age 8, and was known to draw on his own holiday cards for people, using art style that was similar to the show's. The father in the show strikingly was similar to his own father.